When you're looking for someone to judge whether or not your team was offsides, you hire the part-time henchman. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
And Jesse.
Oh my gosh, I take it none of you guys are as big of football fans as I am. I like to just watch the games.
Not
I like to watch it
NFL.
every now and then.
Okay, I watched the last Sunday night game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Los Angeles Chargers.
Okay, who are you rooting for?
I really didn't have a horse in the race. I was just kind of curious to see who would come out on top since they're both pretty good teams. And the finish was amazing because by halftime the Chargers were losing 23-8. It was an ugly game. Then in the second half, somehow in the last 4 minutes it was tied 30-30. Like the most unlikely of unlikely comebacks, especially since the Chargers are in Pittsburgh's home stadium, Heinz Field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They drive all the way down to get like a long field goal. We're talking like 50 yards. And it's the last play possible. They even called a timeout so that they could set up their man properly and kick it. So they've kicked the field goal. It was wide left. Completely missed it. And I'm laughing thinking we're going to go to overtime. You spend all this time setting it up. All of a sudden there's a flag on the field. It turns out Pittsburgh special teams jumped offside so badly it was easily visual.
Oh, wow.
So they get to move the ball forward towards the end zone 5 yards and kick again. To which they do. But again, Pittsburgh jumped off sides. And the ball basically smashed in the face of the Pittsburgh defender and bounced off it. So they have to move the ball forward again 5 yards and kick again. This time, before the ball's even snapped, one of the Pittsburgh defenders runs around the line and he makes a leap. He basically was so early on the snap that he jumped and then the ball was kicked.
Oh boy.
And this one split the uprights. And because of the offsides, Los Angeles actually had to declare they're declining the penalty so they could take the points and win the game. I was watching that just kind of in awe. I've never seen anything that weird before.
Or that dumb. Come on, guys.
Seriously, all you had to do was be patient, and you would have gone to overtime just because he missed the kick. But no, he had 2 extra tries because those guys couldn't keep calm on their home field. It was so weird. And I'm sure that some people will message me about like the Chargers having a false start, but the refs didn't catch it and they managed to get a touchdown. Well, everybody has calls that go their way. It's not like the Chargers are unique in that respect, so whatever.
Yeah.
How about you two? How are you doing?
Oh, my weekend was a nightmare.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah, we got a huge deluge of rain starting, I think, last Wednesday or Thursday and carried on through the weekend. And we found out there are a lot of leaks in my store.
Oh, and there's a new storm popping in this week, too.
No.
Oh, no. Gets better because we have pigeons that live up there. So you could imagine the smell.
Yeah, there's probably a couple pigeons going, cool, indoor pool, all right.
Yeah. So we're dealing with all of that. We get a reprieve long enough for it to get someone out there to clean up all the stuff and clean out the drain pipe that's supposed to drain the water there.
Mm-hmm.
But the smell is lingering so bad.
Dude, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've spent more time outside the store than inside that during that time.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to picture you like lonely, a little depressed, standing outside your gas station smoking. I do not know how to feel. As much as I want to work and the pigeons deserve their lives, they are giving me the ennui. Joanna, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Retail continues to drain the life out of me slowly but surely.
Oh my god. All of a sudden I feel like I'm running a therapy show for people who just hate their jobs.
I don't hate it. I mean, where I work is not the worst retail you could have. There's usually people in pretty good moods, but there's like the one apple that ruins the bunch for you.
Yeah.
But, you know, you shake it off. It's totally your fault, you know, for a store not carrying something odd.
I can't understand that mentality with customers.
How dare you not have this?
It's
You're a
like
national
I
retailer.
I go to a store, looking for something specific. I come across like, oh, it's empty. Oh well, try again next time.
Right.
It's like, come on, people.
But they feel the need to grab the three nearest associates and complain to them for like 20 minutes about how dare you not have this? I mean, I can find this anywhere else. Then by
Oh,
all means.
and my brain is the brain that wants to satisfaction. Well, go to those other stores then.
And
But I
I'm
know
just
if
like
I say
biting
that,
my
I
lip
will
and
get fired.
smiling. Exactly. Just like, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you can always check on our website, and if we don't have it there, then we just don't carry it as a company. Like, well, I'm just surprised. This is a very big company. I'm surprised you've never heard of this. And something off the wall, like that nobody's ever heard of. And anyway, and I mean, it's funny on this side of it, but at the time you feel like you're being interrogated. It's like, okay,
I know
you
the
see
feeling.
this name badge? It doesn't say manager or CEO. I make zero decisions except for when I take my break sometimes.
Yeah, I know what you're going through. I've been working at this gas station for the last 16 damn years, and before that, I've worked several retailers, including Kmart.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
Sorry,
So,
I'm going through my head, and I've actually been a desk jockey for most of my work career outside of my stint as a cook at Chuck E. Cheese.
oh,
wow.
Yeah, they actually made me dressed up as the rat on the very last day.
You were the rat.
On my last day, yeah. It's not like the place was closing. I was just, hey, I got another job. Okay. It's my last day of turning in my stuff. Okay, get in the suit. What? We have a birthday and our usual guys aren't here. Get in the suit. No. You have to get in the suit. Why? Because we stole your clothes. God damn it. They did.
So was that a punishment or a raise?
Neither. It was my last day. So on my way out the door, they had somebody else in the suit, like they couldn't find him beforehand. I think they just played a prank on me. So I gave a quick roundhouse punch to the rat on the way out, and then they had to explain why the rat's head was on backwards in the middle of the birthday party.
Nice.
But, yeah, that was my day. The subject of this week is Supergirl Being Super by DC Comics. We will get to that after the news of the week, and we will start with Marvel comic news. We're going to talk about all the intellectual properties owned by the House of Mouse, which may soon include a whole lot of Fox stuff, and what's going on with them soon. As of, I think, the last couple weeks, the death of Daredevil has ended.
really?
Yeah, I read the last issue. It ended kind of ambiguously because, believe it or not, the 4-issue story arc that Charles Soule wrote out there, at the end, it all turned out to be an extended dream sequence.
What?
Believe it or not, it's not quite as bad as you think because it was basically Daredevil trying to take down, Mayor Wilson Fisk of New York. He enlisted a bunch of heroes and there was a trial at the end, and all of his investigative team, including like Cypher from the X-Men, Frank McGee, one of the Inhumans, and Reader, another Inhuman, right? We talked a little bit about them. They laid it all out, a bunch of street-level heroes and a few Avengers showed up to the trial. Wilson Fisk was deposed as mayor, and it turns out the whole thing is one long delusion because basically early on in the story, Matt Murdock was, well, he was hit hard and he required surgery and he basically was dying on the operating table.
Whoa.
That's
how they're going to wrap it up?
That's how they did. They wrapped, he flatlined and it ended kind of ambiguously because obviously the doctors were going into crash protocols and they were trying to revive him. And I really have no idea how that resolved because the issue ended right when he crashed. So it was kind of creepy. It was a little poignant, but it was kind of creepy. And now I feel kind of bad for Chip Zdarsky, who previously worked on Sex Criminals and Spectacular Spider-Man, because remember, he has to follow up this arc. And he did declare in a recent interview that things will not be business as usual, as he put it. He said, quote, "Things can't be business as usual no matter how badly Matt wants them to be. That was in my head for my first conversations with Charles Soule about the book. The character's been put through a lot over the years, but I think the death of Daredevil is going to be a real come-to-God moment for Matt. What does that look like? What will he become? The series is going to be about big questions and finding answers in strange places," unquote. And I gotta agree with that statement because regardless as to whether or not he died on that table, assuming this is going to be Murdock going forward, near-death experiences typically change people in very radical ways. Mm-hmm. And this is supposed to be a man whose entire whose entire reputation since he was a superhero is to be the man without fear. Well, you nearly died. How you feeling about that now?
A little trepidatious.
I would imagine there's probably a little bit of a reservation in there.
Mm-hmm.
But
I wonder if this new story is gonna be him talking to God.
That's actually a good question. And as we know, there was supposed to be a group of like a mini series of one shots that were supposed to be about characters learning about Murdoch's death. So it could be that it could be similar to the Defenders TV show in that people think he's dead and maybe he's just in a long recuperation. It could be he died and he's about to be resurrected in the near future, or it could be he died and someone else has got to put on the mask for a little bit while he's dead. I really don't know, and I'm trying to keep an open mind about it only because as soon as you make a decision, given all the ways comic books could go, it could be one of a myriad different ways that either he's not dead or he's coming back.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to really close off all the possibilities there. But we'll find out in February with the No Fear arc, as they put it, KNOW, when Zdarsky and Chiquetto take over. I'm intrigued. I'm not a Daredevil reader. I'm always towards the flashier, more powered heroes, but I am really curious to find out how they're going to resolve this particular story.
Mm-hmm.
Did anyone read the first issue of Ironheart last week?
I did
No.
not. I actually forgot to pick that up.
Okay, I put it as my pick of the week in the comic book reviews I put up on DVS Gaming. It was a very strong first issue. It kind of highlights the differences between Riri Williams and Tony Stark as far as armored heroes.
Mm-hmm.
And the big difference is that Riri is a thinker. Tony is, he's a guy. He's a man's man, so obviously a lot of what he does involves just plain blunt force, even though it has a lot of technology to back it up, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Riri tends to outsmart her opponent. She had to take on Clash in that issue, the Spider-Man villain, and while she was fighting him, she figured out how he was putting up a barrier around a building and cut the building's power while she was fighting him to let the hostages be able to escape.
Nice.
But the other thing that came out in this issue that's going to have probably bigger ramifications for Marvel on a whole is that a villain group from the Marvel Cinematic Universe has now ended up in the comic books.
Ooh.
Do you remember the 10 Rings?
Really?
Mm-hmm. Joanna, I'm sensing a little bit of hesitation there.
I'm not familiar with that now.
Okay. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in the very first film, Iron Man, back in 2008, right? Tony Stark was held captive in those mountains in, I think it was Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Right.
The terrorist group he was being held by was called the 10 Rings.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
And a lot of people took that as a reference to the Mandarin.
Right, which it turns out paid off further on, not in Iron Man 3, but in a short on the Iron Man 3 Blu-ray. You know about that, right?
Yes.
Jesse?
I don't know.
Okay. After Iron Man 3 closed, there was a little short that portrayed what happened afterwards. Remember Ben Kingsley? He was the actor who pretended to be the Mandarin for Guy Pearce, right?
Yeah.
He was in jail, and while he was in jail, he was kidnapped by members of the 10 Rings who said the Mandarin wanted to see him. In other words, they were portraying it as if, yes, Guy Pearce put on a big farce, but there was an actual Mandarin who's been underground all this time, and now he wants to deal with a prick that's been pretending to be him for all this time.
Mm-hmm.
That organization, as it turns out, was why Clash was doing what he was doing in Ironheart #1. Apparently the group is looking for disenfranchised geniuses like Clash or like Riri Williams to, I don't know about be soldiers in their army. Clash didn't say after he was arrested what they wanted. He just figured Riri was a lot like him, so he handed her the 10 Ring symbol that he'd been carrying.
Huh.
So something from the movies actually made it into the comic books.
Interesting.
Yeah. And obviously the 10 Rings is an allusion to the Mandarin, a character in Marvel Comics who is I want to say Chinese or Tibetan. No, Mongolian, I think, actually.
Yeah, Mongol.
Yeah, and he has 10 rings, which it turns out are these small AI devices he got from the engine of an alien starship. But each of those rings has an independent power. Fire, ice, telekinetic motion, electricity, intangibility, and so on.
Yeah, you can do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, but because that's something that's kind of hard to portray simply in a single comic book film, obviously they I don't want to say dumbed it down, but they simplified it to the terrorist organization, the Ten Rings. So now the Ten Rings is in Marvel.
Cool.
It's a good villain, or a good group, I should say, because, one, they don't really have a definition of any sort, so you can fill it in as you go. And two, it is a new organization to Marvel, which means this could pretty much be specifically Riri Williams' problem. She's not inheriting other villains from other heroes.
She's getting her own rogues gallery.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and the issue itself was a very solid start. I mean, Riri is a very awkward individual. They portrayed it early on because she has a lab at MIT. That's where she houses her stuff at. And because MIT had some visiting dignitaries, they decided to show off her lab and her in it. And she's not good with people. So basically she was answering everybody's long question with single sentences and the word next.
Doesn't have the same kind of charm.
No, she's not a she's not a flowy showman. She's an engineer, and that's all she is. She is an engineer. But I do really recommend the issue. It's very strong. And as a matter of fact, I can give you one thing right now that happened at the end that it actually made me shout out loud. And I don't do that much reading comic books these days. She's been trying to develop a new AI for her new armor, the ones that she developed as a result of Thanos breaking her last one. And she's been using a rudimentary one, but she mentioned in the issue that she was self-teaching herself how to build an AI, something that can compensate for her own weaknesses and issues, right?
Right.
So, I mean, obviously she's socially awkward. She's a big thinker, but she's not very good when it comes to emotional beats and things like that. You know, it used to be when she was growing up before they were killed, she referred a lot to her stepdad and her best friend Natalie when it came to stuff like that. So after she beat up Clash, she fell asleep at her computer. And she was woken up by someone yelling her name. And when she woke up, there was an AI holograph of her best friend Natalie staring at her.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Oh, God, yes.
That's gotta bring up some trauma.
Oh, dude, it's even worse than you think, because whatever system generated her aged her up so that the two of them are still the same age.
Oh, wow. That's rough.
Again, that's gonna open some old wounds.
Yeah, the next issue is going to be a long navel-gazing session. The only other story I have in Marvel Comics is that the Uncanny X-Men issue number 3 came out last week, and now we have met the Horsemen of Salvation.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, the 4 mutants that have been co-opted by Nate Gray as the Horsemen of Salvation. Magneto, Angel, Blob, and Omega Red. It turns out that the phrase of horsemen, it's actually more nuanced than I thought it was. Because these are now the horsemen of life, bounty, wellness, and peace.
So the anti-apocalyptic horsemen.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Peace is Magneto, and by peace they mean, if necessary, annihilate everything that could cause war, including the X-Men and the Xavier Institute, as it turns out. They blew it up.
Oh.
Bounty, that's got to be Blob.
Oh, yeah.
Life, yeah, that's got to be Angel.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the Horseman of Death previously. But the Horseman of Wellness is Omega Red. Man, talk about ironic. His whole power is basically to pull the life force out of other people to sustain himself.
Maybe he knows how to reverse that?
Oh, I'm guessing that his powers have somehow been tweaked by Nate Gray. If you're not aware, Nate Gray came from the Age of Apocalypse, this 90s story where an alternative world was created where Apocalypse ruled all. Nate Gray is pretty much what would happen if Cable was perfectly healthy growing up. He has all the powers, none of the injuries or techno-organic viruses are keeping his powers kind of toned down. So, this is somebody who has the ability to affect things on a molecular level. Let me put it this way. When Cable was relatively healthy and his techno-organic virus was completely under control, while he was standing talking to Professor Xavier, he could telekinetically disassemble his safe house around them down to the bolts and then reassemble it without much of any strain.
I remember that.
Yeah. So imagine somebody who's even healthier with these powers.
Uh-oh.
He may have the ability to affect things on a molecular level.
That's
Scary.
Yeah. So there's no telling what he may have done to these 4 mutants. He could have fundamentally changed their powers.
Interesting.
But yeah, they decided to announce themselves, and Magneto is the X-Man, or the Horseman of Peace. His job is basically to remove anything that can create war. So he tried to blow up the Xavier Mansion with the X-Men inside it.
There's no half effort with him.
No, and he definitely blew up the mansion, which sounds terrifying, except in the history of the X-Men, that's happened at least 3 times I can think of since I was reading comics.
Right.
I can honestly, the mansion blowing up is kind of a regular thing that happens with them.
Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't for the changing locations of the school, I would just say, the next time you build it, no gas mains, please, like ever.
Right.
But unfortunately, things more explosive than that tend to visit the mansion.
So wait, did he blew up the mansion, the one in Central Park?
Yes.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. It was surrounded by protesters. The X-Men had just arrived. The students were there with Legion. Mm-hmm. But, he just... While basically the X-Men were still trying to figure out what in the world was going on, was when he lit up the mansion. So, there's a story to be had there, but that's issue 3 so far. Issue 4 should come out this week. I'm excited to find out where this leads. We'll move from there into DC comic news. We will talk about the characters and properties that are currently owned by AT&T and what they're up to now and in the near future. There is... Well... I read Heroes in Crisis number 3 this past week, and I'm still very much into this, but issue 3 has actually added more questions than answers. Issue 3 is primarily a flashback issue to what appears to be the days before the massacre at the Sanctuary happened. If this is your first episode, Sanctuary was built by DC's Trinity, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman, using a combination of their technology, techniques, and knowledge to make a place where superheroes and, if necessary, supervillains can get therapy in complete anonymity. There was a massacre of approximately 14 characters, probably more, that, as we know, includes Wally West, the first one, Roy Harper, I think his name was Blue Jay or Blue Eagle, Poison Ivy, Burnout, and Lagoon Boy. And this issue primarily dealt with 3 characters. Lagoon Boy, who was trying to get over the trauma of being impaled via laser. He basically had a room simulate being hit in the gut with a laser over and over because basically he's just kind of surprised to be alive when so many other Titans who were killed in that massacre aren't. He has massive survivor's guilt. And let me see. There were 3 characters that they were following rather heavily. Oh, Wally West too. Wally West has major loneliness issues because he still remembers a prior timeline when he had a wife and kids.
Aww.
Right.
And just about every simulation had to do with him either hanging out with his kids, fighting crime with his kids, and all this other stuff. So it's really heart-tugging. And then there's Booster Gold, who just arrived, is trying to tell everybody he doesn't have a problem, but this is all cool. Everything is fine, but it's all cool. As soon as he understands that the simulator rooms can be like anything he needs, a bedroom, a place, anything he requires in it. It's basically built on that Kryptonian crystal technology. He basically chooses to sit in a room in folding chairs with himself. And as I'm reading the dialogue, it's like the ultimate in self-loathing. It's like he hates himself, but he doesn't quite understand why, And I'm still not quite sure where that was leading, because about the time he started doing this and yelling at himself was when things went berserk. By the time Wally West found out there was anything going on outside, he ran out and Roy Harper was already dead. Lagoon Boy, he was outside, I guess, while people were being killed quietly, and as he's looking down at the bodies, he realizes he's been impaled by something. Something shot through him. It wasn't a laser, it was like a lance or something. And the irony of him basically spending all this time being hit in the gut with something that wouldn't go through and something did, he died laughing at the irony of it all. I mean,
I could see that.
Yeah, that kid had major sorrow. But the surprising part is when Booster Gold got outside, Wally West was still cradling Roy Harper's body when he was clocked in the back of the head by a mallet.
That sounds like Harley Quinn.
It was. She was standing over him, part of her mallet bloody, and she was just asking him, "So, what are you doing here?" And, I mean, that seems to imply pretty heavily that Harley Quinn is a killer, but I still think that's a little too obvious.
It is.
Yeah, it seems too Too easy.
You know, my problem is I don't know if we're looking at the reality of it or if we're looking at things through Booster Gold's kind of, damaged prism. I don't know if he's seeing what he wants to see at this point. And given all the weird projections we just saw, there's no guarantee that this wasn't some kind of weird AI version of Harley Quinn running around doing this stuff. Besides which, impaling Lagoon Boy with some kind of fireable lance or arrow, this doesn't sound like her.
Mm-hmm.
I have a strong feeling there's something else going on. I know I've said before that I don't think Harley's the killer, but based on this issue, I still don't. There's too many questions that I have.
Honestly, I'm making a prediction, just on a hunch.
Okay, go for it.
That it's the facility that killed him. It taps into someone's thought process, and it came up with this scenario.
You know, I almost argued against that, except you just made me realize this is a highly advanced simulator, basically. The entire facility is, right?
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
It's a highly advanced simulator built with Kryptonian technology, but programmed by Batman. You have an AI programmed by Batman. That thing could be insane and nobody knows it.
That's very true.
I'm almost thinking DC's getting their version of Danger.
Well, it's not like it's unprecedented because Batman does not have the greatest history with AI. Batman's the one that built OMAC.
Let's keep him away from computers, please.
Yeah, well, he didn't build OMAC, excuse me. He built Brother Eye that created OMAC. Do you know what Brother Eye is?
No.
Brother Eye is a spy satellite that he built basically to help him watch the world. It's supposed to be the central control AI of what was going to be a series of satellites to watch the world. Like a spy, Big Brother for the globe, right?
Right.
Which I'm sure he had the greatest of intentions for, but Brother Eye didn't want to be forcibly shut down or limited in power, so it started to create the OMAC system, which was a series of nanites that could co-opt individual people and turn them into superpower beings as tools of enforcement. You can see where this went wrong.
Yes.
So, like I said, Batman does not have the greatest history, even with the best of intentions when it comes to AI.
So something in the program could have made the facility into a killer.
Yeah, Jesse may be onto something. It could be that both Harley and Booster were absolutely truthful when they said that the other was killing heroes because that's what they saw, regardless of whether or not those were the actual people.
That's a really good theory. I like it.
Yeah, you gave me the pieces of the facility itself and how it does this. It's like, wait a minute, maybe the facility is the one that killed everyone.
Well, look, I mean, I know I'm the only one reading it, but I feel strongly enough about this miniseries that once it hits issue 5, I think I'm going to put it on the reading list.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
And if it's
I'm
good,
okay with that.
And if it's good enough, we'll go through the last 4 issues after they come out. This is a 9-issue mini, so obviously Tom King felt like he had a long story to tell.
I trust Tom King.
He's done pretty good work. I haven't liked his work on Mr. Miracle, but for the most part, I like his work. I'm allowed to be critical. There are things I don't enjoy. Justice League also finished the Drowned Earth storyline finally. I haven't really enjoyed that one, but it's also revealed that the Justice League has a second in command.
You do?
Who's that?
Yeah, as of their recent formation after Dark Knight's Metal, they agreed that John Johns, the Martian Manhunter, is the chairman of the Justice League. Like the first time ever this character's been put in the lead.
That's a good pick.
Yeah, usually he's in ancillary roles or technical roles, but in this case, because of his ability to link everybody telepathically and his ability to think without getting overcharged by his own emotions, they put him in charge. It's reasonable.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, as a result of Drowned Earth, he was unable to be found. He was busy with, all the other superheroes of the world. And if you recall, we discussed how Batman was having trouble holding things down because he's injured in this bizarre exo-armor. And he was stuck in the Hall of Justice with underwater with members of the Legion of Doom. Yeah, he ended up having to fight like the Joker and another character, I forget who, by borrowing one of their confiscated items, one of Lex Luthor's original war suits.
That's dangerous.
Yeah. But it also had an emergency teleporter in it, and he used it to get away. And that's when he teleported, and he found himself in close proximity to Wonder Woman, who, of course, is asking, "What are you doing here?" It turns out Batman had programmed the war suit to appear next to one of the Justice League leaders, and Wonder Woman said, "Who's that? John's not here." And he said, "That's you." It turns out both Superman and Batman have had discussions where they agreed that if John Johns was unavailable, Wonder Woman is the next most logical person to lead the League right now.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because of her compassion, and so far she hasn't screwed up near as bad as the others.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Superman and Batman have both had their times leading the leagues, and both of those have ended kind of explosively.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, apparently it's been unsaid, but most of the others seem to consider Wonder Woman the second in command of the League right now. Be interesting to see if they actually put that to paper anytime soon, or make it official.
Yeah, I would like them to, but no. They haven't.
Yeah. And now that Drowned Earth has been finished as of Justice League number 12, it turns out Aquaman's powers are a little more expansive than they've ever been before, except it involves something going back to the Dark Knight's Metal event.
What's that?
Okay, if you've been listening to this show, and I know you two have been because you've been here, you know that I don't like some of the things that they've introduced after Dark Knight's Metal and around the No Justice period, when suddenly there's a group of amorphous forces that are responsible for the superpowers of terrestrial characters in DC, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Flash now, depending on how things go, he has access to the Strength Force, which can cause inhuman durability and strength, or the Sage Force, which is responsible for things like telekinetics and telepathics. A lot of powers to do with the mind. It turns out that the way Tynion has wrote it, Aquaman, for all this time, has only been touching the surface of something called the Life Force.
Mm.
Yeah, and because of Drowned Earth, now Aquaman has more of a contact with the Life Force. According to Tynion in an interview with Newsarama, quote, "Fundamentally, it's the string that ties every living being on the planet and beyond this planet. We've learned that the purest, most powerful font of that power is on Earth, part of the reason that the Earth is the center of the DC multiverse. So the ocean god of Earth, Poseidon, was protecting this font of the Life Force. When Arion wanted to share it with the universe, he got freaked out and basically said, no, I'm not going to share it. So the Tear of Extinction is a piece of that power that's been inverted. It's the opposite of the connection. It's pure disconnection. It's breaking apart all of the connections that life has with itself. What Arion needed to do to defeat the sea gods back in the day, misguided by Poseidon, was make himself this necrotic force of death. It ultimately killed him. Does all of that make sense?" Unquote.
Huh.
So Aquaman apparently is turned into, I don't know, I guess you could say the holder of the Ring of Heart in Captain Planet.
Interesting analogy.
There's so many bad jokes associated with that.
And Aquaman's already had this odd standing in the Justice League from his very beginning.
Yes, you understand why there's so many bad jokes associated with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not because the Aquaman character is a bad concept. I think it's because there have been so many writers over the years that have no idea what to do with a character like Aquaman. And now you have one that, yes, has jacked up his power, but why did we have to go from telepathic control of fish directly to connection to all life? Isn't there a middle step in between we've skipped somewhere?
Well, they assume that you realize that water is the building block of all life. I don't know.
I mean, control of water would be one thing, but you've already got Mera who does that in spades.
Right.
Does she have control of water?
Yes. She's a hydrokinetic.
No, Aquaman.
Not that I've seen, but several characters around him have, including Mera, Tempest, the first Aqua lad.
Yeah.
And I think Dolphin has a limited form of that as well.
Didn't Ocean? Oh, I think Ocean Master had a degree to it, but I think that was for some device, I believe.
But it's like you could have started with Aquaman just by tuning up his telepathy so that it wasn't just aquatic sea creatures that could hear him, at least. A character that's super strong and telepathic is already a game changer in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, I don't like that everything is connected to these weird forces that are still so undefined. They could be just about anything. And I understand that there's a chance to write it and make it really cool, but DC's already had the Speed Force for a couple decades now, and so far, the answer to the Speed Force is everything and nothing.
Yeah, it's like their equivalent of the gamma rays. Like, what is it? Oh, it's mysterious.
Yeah.
And then science actually explained it, and it's not really that cool.
Well, yeah, and that's why Marvel kind of toned it down, whereas DC just kind of made up their own thing, so they didn't have science debunk it. So
Yeah, but it's not even believable.
Well, it's not even the problem that it's believable. I mean, it's comic book. Sooner or later, you're going to run into something that defies logic. You just have to see if you can roll with it. But these forces they keep introducing have no logical string to them. They're just these things that are supposed to be a general explanation. It's like when somebody says, "Well, how did he do that?" Because he's Batman, and that's somehow good enough.
It's not really.
I don't think so. Obviously, there's people out there who do. They keep buying it. I mean, and I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm saying that because there are people out there who are enjoying this, obviously.
Hmm.
I can't. I need a better explanation. It doesn't have to be absolutely logical. I mean, I read comic books where some guy's able to duplicate himself to the tune of thousands of individuals and not have a mental breakdown. But at the same time, it has to be a better explanation than it's the life force.
Yeah.
But that's me. Last up in DC comic news, I'm glad to say that Sean Gordon Murphy, he's expanded a bit on what's happening in his White Knight universe. Sean Gordon Murphy is the guy who wrote Batman White Knight, an 8-issue miniseries that told an alternative tale of what would happen if the Joker tried to get himself clean and sane and save Gotham. And I know we had varying opinions of it just within the people sitting in this room. I truly enjoyed it. I bought the trade paperback when it came out. But it turns out that in Volume 2 of his book, Murphy has opened up that he wants his next volume to focus on a new threat, Azrael, his version of Azrael, while also introducing readers that will be getting clues on what inspired Jack Napier's origin as the Joker via Arkham Manor. And then Murphy also said that if he has other tales to tell, he would like to talk more about his version of Jason Todd.
oh,
It gets deeper than that. It turns out in an interview, Murphy said that in his version of things, Todd was the first Robin, not Grayson.
Yeah. I'd heard something about that.
Yeah. He said, quote, "I would love to get Jason Todd. One of the happy accidents of Volume 1 was I switched the order of the Robin so that Jason Todd was not killed. He just left. I wanted to touch on that. Not sure if I'm going to fit that in Volume 2, maybe at the end, but if I ever do get to a third volume, maybe I'll tackle the Jason Todd thing." Unquote. I'm intrigued by that story possibility.
Me too. I think that'd be interesting to see how it unfolds.
Well, it would actually kind of damage Bruce Wayne a lot. It might explain some of the events of White Knight if you think about his first Robin being an utter failure instead of the success that Dick Grayson turned out to be.
Right. Well, I mean, success in what? That he lived to adulthood?
Yeah, basically in the White Knight version of things, obviously Grayson's already become Nightwing. Then he started working with the Gotham Terror Organization, became a pseudo cop. Grayson is obviously the success. He managed to not just survive, but he somehow thrived under these situations. And
Yeah.
if you think about what that would do to just the regular version of Bruce Wayne, if his first Robin died instead of his second, oh my God, that kind of individual would be off his rocker.
That's true. I mean, but Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne butted heads a lot.
They did.
And there was a lot of Bat family drama. I mean,
Yes.
I guess success, yes, because he survived.
Mm-hmm. Well, he also became a successful individual both in and out of the mask. And I don't mean monetarily. I mean he turned into an actual person.
yeah.
Right.
Which is
Yeah.
kind of surprising considering the two of them, Grayson and Wayne, went through very similar traumas at around the same age range. And somehow one turned out much better. And
Yeah, but one had guidance while the other one kind of drifted.
well, I don't know if guidance is the right word. He may have just looked at Bruce Wayne and said, "So wait, you mean if I go fully into my trauma, this is what I turn into?" Oh, hell no.
Okay, so let me change it. He had reflection.
There you go. But something else Murphy said he'd like to tackle if he gets to get further into the Murphyverse. He would like to, he said, quote, "I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it or how I'm going to introduce Terry, but I have an idea that will explain why Gotham looks so gothic and Batman Beyond looks so futuristic, and how did this city change so fast. I think I have a way to explain that," unquote.
I was about to ask, who's Terry?
Terry McGinnis, the Batman
I know.
Beyond, yeah.
Yep.
Batman
I remember
Beyond.
that show.
Yeah, the show was such a great concept, and when they had that mini series at the end that tied it all together and made McGinnis the biological son of Wayne, it came damn close. It felt like to jumping the shark.
Yeah.
You know, the two of them just working together, I was fine with. If there was some kind of distant familial connection, I would have been fine with that too. To find out the whole thing was this bizarre, not controversy. What?
Conspiracy or
Conspiracy. That's the word I was looking for. That was all a huge conspiracy that Amanda Waller used the Phantasm to steal his DNA and inject it into a woman so she could become pregnant with his child, just in case he needed a Batman down the line. It's like, okay, hold up, this is getting complicated.
Amanda Waller's creepy and manipulative, but that's a completely different level
It is a step above
of manipulation.
I
That's
do agree.
that's psychotic.
Yeah, and the whole,
enforcing known criminals and super criminals to do her biddings are at risk of death.
yeah, and the only thing that stopped her plan.
Yeah, she's twisted.
Right, and the only thing that stopped her plan from going was that the Phantasm was supposed to kill McGinnis' father, so he had Bruce Wayne-style trauma and was inspired to be a vigilante, to which she could not do. She actually had some form of ethics. And then, by sheer accident later on, he was killed by a gang member. It almost feels like there should be some guy with a huge mustache standing off to the side just screaming, "Por qué?" I can't help it. I'm from California. Those jokes make sense here. Last up, we have our general comic and convention news. It's where we talk about comic books that are not Marvel or DC related, as well as conventions happening all around the world. And we were just discussing it before the show, but it turns out that Ontario Comic-Con Revolution in Ontario, California, is scheduled to happen May 18th and 19th, 2019. And they are going to have a reunion of Transformers the Animated Series voice talent. And I'm talking Generation 1 1984 voice talent.
Nice.
We already announced that they're having Peter Cullen on Saturday only of the convention for signings and autographs.
Mm-hmm.
As of mid-November, they added 6 more names, and they're hosting a Transformers reunion. They are including Greg Berger, who voiced Grimlock, Volcanicus, Stockade, Long Haul, and Lockdown. Paul Ading, who did Perceptor. Michael Bell, who did the voices of Prowl, Scrapper, Swoop, High Tide, and Primon. Also, Dan Gilvezan, who did Bumblebee, Hotspot, Scamper, Goldbug, Rollbar, and Snapdragon. Alan Oppenheimer, who did the voices for Warpath, Beachcomber, Sea Spray, and Breakdown. Neil Ross, who did the voices of Bone Crusher, Six Shot, Springer, Hook, and Crosshairs. And, of course, Peter Cullen. That's going to be a very busy panel room.
Yeah.
I want to be in that panel room.
I want to be there as well.
Dude, I'm just digging all this. We also have official notification last week as of the cause of death of Stan Lee.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, his official cause of death is cardiac arrest with respiratory failure, and congenitive heart failure as underlying causes.
Sounds like just old age took him.
Pretty much. I mean, it's no secret that in the prior year he was suffering from aspiration pneumonia.
Yeah.
And he also had a significant condition that caused to his death. Pulmonary aspiration, according to the Mayo Clinic, occurs when a person inhales food, stomach acid, or saliva into the lungs.
Oh, ow. Pain.
Yeah. He was also hospitalized in January for shortness of breath and an irregular heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, unfortunately age just caught up to the guy, which I guess is fortunate, really. He lived a good, long life. 95.
Yeah, still felt like too soon, though.
Yeah, I could see that as well. Not all is rosy in the lands of independence. Lionforge Comics has laid off 12 employees as part of a company-wide restructuring.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this happened just this past month, according to ICV2. According to a statement from the company, quote, Lionforge has experienced a tremendous amount of growth over the last 3 years. While the company remains healthy, we've taken a hard look at how best to focus our efforts for continued success. As part of this process, we've made some difficult decisions, and none more difficult than in the case of personnel, unquote. They are based in St. Louis. I know 12 people doesn't sound like a big layoff. Before then, they had 55 people in the office.
Oh, that's not a good number.
That's a significant.
Yeah. So laying off a full fifth to almost a quarter of your workforce, that doesn't just sound like a restructuring. That sounds like something else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, granted, though, those could be just the people who work in administrative positions, because obviously a lot of employees of Lionforge are going to be work for hire contracts, outside contractors who are the writers and artists in comic books.
Mm-hmm.
So there could be a decent amount of business, and they just decide to slim down the talking heads, but, I wouldn't know that without getting a complete map as to their business structure. I hope things turn out well, man. I may not read Lionforge on a regular basis, but I don't want to hear about people just failing.
Mm-hmm.
Also, a Toy Story 4 graphic novel has been announced.
A graphic novel?
Yeah. I'm surprised by a few things here. Number one, it's going to retail for $10.99. Number two, Marvel's not doing it. You would think Disney would do this in-house, but they've contracted Dark Horse to do the graphic novel. I don't know why. This is supposed to serve as a companion to Toy Story 4 ahead of its release. It's going to be written by Hayden Blackman, who Dark Horse says brings fun, energy, and heart to this graphic novel that features the toys you know and love, and introduces some new toys too, unquote. There's no word as to what stories or characters are going to be in this. None at all. It's going to be released on May 7th, 2019.
Interesting.
Yeah. I know some Pixar fans who will be deep into that. I don't know. I'm okay with the Toy Story movies. I guess I'm just kind of concerned whether peeking too far under the hood will show some things that may not gel with my ideas of the films.
Right, that's fair.
So, to each their own. And last up in general comic news, some character designs have been released for the new Buffy comic.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I take it you want to see these?
Yes, please.
This has to do with Boom Studios' new retelling of the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV show in comic book form. This one appears to start not long before graduation of the Sunnydale crew. And it's notable for a few different reasons. I mean, they've updated a lot of the designs. Willow in particular is taking a little bit more of a goth punk turn. But still,
of course.
Yeah, that has to go with modern era. Giles doesn't look very different. What is surprising, though, is that in these designs, you already have a design for Anya Jenkins.
Oh, neat.
Who was introduced fairly late in the TV show. I wonder if she'll have a better survivability rate.
Maybe.
Yeah. Also, they showed designs on Spike and Drusilla has changed a lot. So, should we go through these one at a time, I assume?
Sure.
She's excited. Jesse's just sitting there going, no, not TV stuff.
Well, you guys got to nerd out about Transformers.
Oh, I'm not a particular fan of...
You know what, Joanna? I'm going to throw what you say back at you. That's fair.
There's a lot that's fair.
Yes.
The first design of Buffy Summers, I mean, you got to give them credit. They're not trying to redesign the wheel.
Yeah, but
know.
it's definitely not the 90s fashion that we came to cringe about later.
No, but it is remarkably similar. I mean, it is basically blue jeans, high tops, not crop tops, but, just simple tops that she wears, including the flannel and t-shirt combination there as a substitute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's iconic.
Yeah. Like I said, did not redesigning the wheel. If you scroll down to Xander, it's the same kind of thing. It is the same basic look he wore in the TV show, just given a modern update.
Yeah, the skinny jeans. He wore baggy cargo pants usually.
Yeah, a little bit of a denim jacket there. It looks like too. But they did not ignore his button shirt over a t-shirt look that he wore pretty much constantly. When you scroll to Willow's, hers is probably the biggest change among the 7 designs they have here.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It's
definitely modern punk, but I like it.
Yeah, it works. It works very well. In the TV show, I would call her mode of dress generally demure. Really, very dressed down. In this one, it looks like they're not afraid to have the character try to show off her figure, but it's not showy clothes. It's just a whole bunch of gothic punk stuff that covers everything, really.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. I think it's a smart redesign. It doesn't just update her, it gives her a little bit of a unique look among the others.
Well, she would wear these corduroy overalls and like brightly colored shirts with it. I don't think that would translate well to modern time.
Maybe. You never know these days.
Mm.
Rupert Giles, yeah, didn't change a damn thing.
I
Nope.
don't think he changed.
He's still
Don't mess with his style.
yeah, still a British three-piece suit that's still wearing what appears to be combat boots.
Well, and I mean, Oxfords
Yeah.
were probably his thing then, but combat boots are probably more functional.
Yeah, Anya Jenkins, it's just the one picture there, but again, she appeared very late in the series and she died about a season after she was introduced, so I'd like to know what the story is here.
Is that the one, the she-demon, Anyanka?
I believe so. Oh, no, I was thinking of something else. I was thinking of Terra, that's right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Anya was like season 1 or 2.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what version of the character we're talking about here. I don't know if this is one that's already hanging around with the Scoobies or if this is just going to be a new or a different version that's going to be harassing them as a constant villain throughout.
Yeah, because she was reformed after she realized her powers were gone after the amulet was crushed.
Yeah. And Spike, very much looking like James Marsden. Again, it was already a pretty good design that didn't need too much of a change.
I feel like his face is more
Angular?
detailed. No, I mean his face is very angular. I feel like it looks more like the actor than even the Buffy drawing.
Probably, but I mean, he doesn't have the green skin or the antennas.
Yeah.
Sorry, if you didn't understand that joke, you obviously haven't watched enough Dragon Ball, but okay.
Oh God, no.
I can sense the confusion.
Boo.
Last up, though, the biggest change has got to be the Drusilla designs.
Wow. What is with the suit?
I don't know. She doesn't look like a crazy schoolgirl anymore. She looks like a corporate raider.
Well, they're crazy too.
Yeah. Or she looks like an extra in the Rocky, Rocky Horror Picture Show. I'm not sure what to think of that. It looks like they're trying to angle her to be a major villain and just source of power in the series.
So instead of
extreme villain.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but instead of kind of chaotic psycho, it's more chaotic evil.
Yeah, definitely a much slicker look for her. The only thing that I really notice here, looking at everything, especially looking at Drusilla, is that the artist, he's very good in most respects, but I don't think he understands how heels work.
Yeah, I was looking at it. Those don't look
Yeah.
right.
They all have these weird bumps, like right at the heel.
He doesn't know how women's feet looks. He probably doesn't get that far down visually.
I'm glad you finished that sentence because my brain was going so many places.
No, you know how, guys stop like at the shoulders or below usually, and if they're pervs, it's lower, but they don't actually look at feet, so they don't actually know what shoes look like.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never make the mistake of asking, hey, do you like my shoes? Okay, they're all right. What do you think about these shoes? They're shoes. Because guys don't pay attention to shoes.
No, I'm a deflector in cases like that. When somebody says, what do you think of my shoes? Oh my god, you're wearing shoes?
At least for me, I find it's shoes. They're unimportant.
But they can be cute, though.
You're talking to the wrong person for that.
I'm totally alone here.
Yeah. Oh no, it's fine, Jesse. You just got to find another way to phrase that because when you said shoes, it's unimportant. It makes it sound like now kick those off and get your ass in bed.
Didn't come
Okay.
across that way to me. I think you're the only one that took it there.
Yes, because if my tone came across that way, you feel free to punch me.
You all heard it. He can't charge me with assault after this. The subject of this week is DC Comics' Supergirl Being Super. This is a miniseries and graphic novel that was put out by DC Comics. It was written by Mariko Tamaki. The art is by Joelle Jones. The inks are by Sandu Florea. The colors are by Kelly Fitzpatrick, and the letters are by Seda Temofonte. And this, it's kind of funny that we were talking about a modern reimagining of Buffy for so long, because this is definitely a modern reimagining of the origin of Supergirl in DC Comics. But it starts off, in my opinion, kind of slowly, but by the time it was done, I'm actually disappointed this is not their canon.
Yes, me
It
too.
isn't?
It isn't. This is just an imagining.
Wow.
It's an Elseworlds tale.
Oh,
But it
that's so
makes more
disappointing.
sense if it was canon. Like it totally fits.
It does. And that's the worst part, is that this is such an interesting retelling of what Supergirl's origin could be. It feels like this was written, I think, before Rebirth, so it's definitely not part of the current continuity. I think they
Hmm.
did this during the latter part of the New 52 era, but that makes me even sadder, because by the time this 4 issues were done, I really wanted to see more of this universe.
Yeah, I did too. Especially, I want to know her conversation with the man in blue.
Yeah.
Like, because in this one, and they never made it clear, is she his cousin?
Uh,
Because she's still Jor-El
I assume so, but
or
again,
Zor-El.
you're right. They never implicitly said it. I think her friend towards the end said that. I think she laughed when they were looking at a picture of him about a family resemblance of some sort,
Yeah.
Hmm.
but they
Well, no, yes,
but they dismissed it in
Zor-
the same panel.
yeah,
Right.
Zora was always her family name, but I think they're related by I think the mothers.
Yeah, the mothers were sisters.
Yeah, they're definitely cousins in most continuities. In this one, it's not absolutely sure because they never really delved into it. But I mean, the first issue, like I said, it started off slow, and the art wasn't my favorite at the beginning either. It seemed almost unfinished during a lot of the first issue.
It had like a rough quality to it.
I like the rough quality.
Mm.
I was okay with it.
But I mean, Kara is very much aware that she is different somehow. She doesn't know how. And her parents are actually pretty loving individuals for being a bit, I guess you could say distant, a little standoffish.
A little bit.
A little
They're
bit.
hands-off parents.
Hmm. But I mean, I wasn't even sure how much she knew about herself until her dad asked her to help move things around the barn. And then you have that image of Kara just kind of lazily holding a tractor above her head with one hand while texting with
one
the other.
In one hand and tweeting in the other.
Yeah. And that was the single image where I was kind of sold into this book because, again, this is an unapologetically powerful young lady who knows precisely what she is, who's hiding what she is from the small town of Midvale where she's living, but is still very much a teenager.
Right. I like
Yeah.
that they added that to the continuity. It made it feel modern. It made it feel relatable. It made it feel like she has a personality. Like, because up until this, I felt like Kara maybe had a little more personality than Kal-El, but not by much. And you all know my opinions of Superman. He's not that super.
Yeah, well, I think in most continuities in DC,
Superman's supposed to be a paragon character.
he is. He's supposed to be something for everyone to look up to and model themselves after. But I think in most continuities in DC, and I'm working based off what memories I have. I haven't read a whole lot of it with aplomb. Most of the time, when Kara's tale is told, she either just arrived on Earth, and she knows exactly what she is and the possibilities that she holds, or she arrived on Earth pretty much already in some kind of pseudo costume in a pod, and just like, hey, cuz, I'm ready to help you do whatever you need to do. She's always very chirpy, very happy, with a couple of exceptions that fans of DC generally don't enjoy.
Right.
In this case, though, she was very much while not a human girl, she was a very human character.
Right.
Yeah.
And she was a real teenager. I mean, what teenager has life figured out? And in previous incarnations of her, I noticed this a little bit. She's always running to Superman for help. Like, "Hey, I can help you. I want to be part of the team." And in this, she's just trying to figure out high school, you
Mhm.
know. She again, the whole female being defined by male, it bothers me. It gets to me, and a lot of times
It-
Supergirl is just a supporting character for Superman.
I honestly would, given the when she was created, who created this character? To be
I
honest,
really do not know. I'd
all I
never.
know
Hopefully,
is
man.
her inception was to be an ancillary character, much like any other Robins for Batman.
Exactly. Or the Batgirl equivalent to Superman or something, but Batgirl turned out awesome.
Awesome.
Anyway,
Yes.
Yeah, but
Yes.
a lot of
the
sidekicks.
supers just never did it for me.
Well, the other thing is, though, characters like Supergirl and Robins, for the most part, were created in eras where you created sidekicks not necessarily to assist the heroes, but for the heroes to have someone to save.
Right. And to teach and to mold into their own image.
Hmm.
which is kind of
Narcissistic.
it's tropey and just bad.
Yeah, and
if you create a character solely to be this, is like that's not a character, that's a prop.
yeah.
Well, then Lois Lane, what was her purpose? Oh, wait, to be the damsel in distress for Clark Kent to save.
Yeah. Yeah, I won't argue that. Tamaki wrote a very interesting tale here because she plays the timing very carefully. At the very first issue, we are days before Kara Danvers' 16th birthday. Her powers are freaking out. Occasionally her hands glow, and she doesn't quite know what that does or what happens to her during these periods. And then there was the simple thing she's dealing with. You know, she woke up in the middle of the night because she was feeling strange, noticed a giant zit on her chin, tried to pop it, and it exploded.
That was disturbing.
It was
That was
disturbing.
so nasty.
I know, there's pus all over the sink, exploded onto the wall. It's dripping from the ceiling. It's hit the bathtub behind her. And I just love the exposition there of, did a bug explode? Am I a bug?
Yeah.
Honestly,
I love that
when
line.
happened, I kind of got flashbacks, just like stuff from Image, from Image Comics.
Well, not just that. I mean, it's a single page in this 200-page graphic novel. But I even loved when she got past exposition and started to say out loud, "Shoot!" You know, she wanted to swear so badly, but she just couldn't. And just her absolute confusion. She spent 3 hours during that night cleaning up the bathroom so she wouldn't have to try to explain it to anybody.
That's sometimes best.
Oh, God. I was so happy with how just acclimated to Earth life the character was. And then she doesn't even know what planet she came from. She just knows she was found in this weird thing called the Pod that has a very familiar symbol on it, but of course she doesn't know what it means.
Right.
And, God, we can fast forward to the scene where she learns how fast she can run and her dad is just staring at her like it's relatively normal somehow. He's a stone-faced acceptor.
Yeah, he's like, well, that's a thing now. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
He's a man who believes his own eyes and nothing else.
But,
That's what it comes down. That's how I feel about him.
well, he believes it, but he's also very adaptable, because just about every other character, I would think, including myself, when the little girl you're taking care of runs off at high speed, you know, strong enough to disturb all the grass and kick up dirt behind her, and all he says is, "Kara, come on back now." It's, really? That's all we're going to say about this?
Yeah. And when she walks off the barn roof and starts flying and
Oh,
his wife
yeah.
passes out and he's like, well, okay then. You know? And she's like, look, it's magic.
Yeah, I mean,
She's got a little tutu on. It's adorable. And he's like,
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about this tutu, is what his facial expression is telling me.
Yeah, and don't misunderstand. Her mother is a very lovely person. You know, she is that down-home individual you always picture in these Midwest small towns. But her dad somehow is just that awesome guy who just says, well, okay, gonna have to figure this one out now.
Right.
A bit of a conspiracy theorist too, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know about conspiracy theories. He's
No. He's a guy that doesn't do frivolous things.
a very individualistic person. He doesn't believe much in government structures. He doesn't believe much in relying on others. He's an individualist.
Yeah.
Or in
He's not a big
banks.
fan on holidays either.
Yeah, he's not big into systems.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, when the zombies come, you'll want to run to his farm because he's got stuff figured out already.
Yep.
He's got all the ammo.
Mm-hmm. And a couple more power glitches for Kara, but the whole scene at the track.
That was intense.
That was super intense. Her powers freaked out at the same time the Earth went crazy, and there was a high-power earthquake that started to open up the track underneath everybody. Her friend Dolly dropped in, and of course Kara jumped in and grabbed her one-handed, grabbed a rock edge with the other, and just yanked her out.
Yeah, and funny enough, I thought that's where it was going to end. I thought that was going to be the save. Hey,
Oh,
I'm strong. I've got this ability.
You thought it was this.
no.
And then she's like,
Yeah, you
where's Jen? I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, you thought it was
like
a
my
stereotypical.
stomach drop.
Yeah, you thought it was a stereotypical big rescue, and now I have to explain this to everybody in my life type of storyline. But no, it went further to where her other best friend fell into a similar crevice, and when she jumped in to save her in the following issue, her powers completely freaked out and failed. They were just gone. and then she was
Yeah.
unable to hold down this very awkward position they were in. The two of them fell, but that's when the fire department came in, and because she was higher up, they managed to grab her, but her friend unfortunately fell into the crevice.
This is the kind of trouble I like to write.
You know-
I know it's morbid.
No,
but
it's
yeah.
it's a heart-wrenching storyline, especially because, even casual DC readers are very aware of what Supergirl can do. Even if she can't fly, that rescue is well within her realm of ability to do, but something glitched her out,
Mhm.
and she lost one of her lifelong friends in a moment where she should have been able to save her.
Yeah, and well, we find out later that it has something to do with the mysterious wristbands that they were given.
Yeah, the coach gave them all Fitbits.
Yeah. I
Of
will be
doom.
honest. I will be honest. Continuing to read, when after that happened, I realized, is she going to come back and be a supervillain? That was my thought, and that's the most probably cliche thing they could have done.
Well, Jen's body was never found,
No.
Yeah, that's why I thought that.
so who knows?
The second issue, though, even though it was a bit long and a little slow, I actually enjoyed it because you saw Danvers go through basically the 5 stages of grief there.
Yeah.
I mean, when she spent the first few issues doing nothing but sitting on the recliner watching the news about what happened and eating cereal.
Her
And
comfort
More
food.
cereal.
Yeah, and as ridiculous as that sounds, she just had no idea what to do with her grief at that time, and that's another response that's well within normal human ranges.
Especially for teenagers, because
Yeah.
at that age, you don't know much about real grief. You
Mhm.
haven't seen death, but here she is trying to figure out how to be a teenager, how to blend in.
Yeah, but of course
And then
hers is magnified a bit because her secret is out to one of her best friends, and her secret couldn't save her other best friend.
yeah, and she's of course feeling extreme guilt about Jen,
Yeah.
and it was, I mean, rightly so. I understand that, but what can you say to her? Even her parents were even avoiding saying things to her.
Well, I mean, I understand that part because there's nothing you can really say. What are they going to say? I know what you're going through. They have no idea what she's going through.
Mm-hmm.
Not a clue.
No.
And when she decides to try and take a run to clear her mind, I got to give Jones a lot of credit. In the second issue, the art started to, in my opinion, firm up a lot. But that image on the 74th page of her running at high speed with such force, and there's almost an energy aura around her.
Mm-hmm.
That was an incredible image. Usually when Kryptonians are moving at high speed, it's all about wind resistance and the visualization of it. I've never seen it to the point where she may actually be creating heat friction.
Yeah, and her
My-
poor new shoes.
My history with the Kryptonian super speed is just a streak of color.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
And then she got a text from her mom that basically said, "You ate all the cereal. Could you please pick some up on the way home? Thank you."
Such a typical mom thing to say.
You know,
Yes.
it sounds dismissive, but at the same time, she's giving her something to do to help take her mind off everything else. I get
Right.
that.
For sure.
Again,
Like, hey,
her mom's a very doting individual, and her dad is the analytical one who's like busy solving problems.
mm-hmm.
oh yeah, you go back there one night and the father told her that she can't tell anyone about her powers. Like, it shot me back to Man of Steel and how poorly they did that
Yeah.
compared to this.
Yeah, I agree. Let them die. Yeah. That whole thing. Jesus Christ. Yeah, the short talk actually between her dad and Kara after everything was going on and she was starting to recover, and all he says is, "I'm sorry about your friend," and she just says, "Me too." And they sit there in silence. God, another case of a very human response, even though they're very unusual people.
Right.
Honestly, that kind of talk is the same thing I have with my dad, and but it confuses the hell out of my mom.
Hmm. But let me see. Yeah, late in the second issue, you see some of her memories manifesting themselves as dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
Yep.
of course, towards the end, when she goes in the pod and remembers that she was put in this thing with this blanket that has the giant yellow S on it, which I'm sure fans were just freaking out about. And then she throws that tantrum where she's bashing the ground and it is breaking underneath her. I don't know. Mariko Tamaki wrote a very emotionally charged 4 issues here.
Right, and it was done well. It didn't seem over the top. it seemed the right amount for the situation she was given
Hmm.
and the position she's in, and I liked that it had depth to it, which is rare for a super story
Yeah.
of any kind.
Yeah, even though it had a lot of tropey concepts in it, Mariko Tamaki somehow managed to avoid all the tropes in it.
And I appreciated that because I'm not a fan of a lot of the
Well,
tropes.
she even poked fun at the beginning of the third issue here. Kara is going back to school, afraid of seeing everybody, and there she is, like putting on shirts. All I need is some dorky pair of glasses. Whatever.
Yes, I caught that, and I kind of I giggled. I was like, yes, that is definitely a poke. Also, the TV show, but I mean that predated the show, right?
I think so. Um,
So it's probably just a nudge at the Clark Kent glasses.
it actually occurred to me another trope that Tamaki avoided in the writing of this miniseries is that when you have a superpower character growing up, more often writers tend to portray them as using their powers at home because they can't use them anywhere else. Except in this case, Danvers is so well behaved for her parents that she just plain doesn't use them unless it's an absolute emergency of some sort. She walks
Or when
around.
asked.
Yeah, she walks around the house. She doesn't go speeding through it. She doesn't hurriedly throw things down her throat because she needs the calories. She acts like a very normal girl, except for those few points where her ennui takes over and she needs to be in the sky for a few minutes, or she has to lift things to help out the family.
Right, or drag someone out of a flaming
Fire.
building.
Yep.
She uses it extremely sparingly, which actually makes those moments where she does use it even more poignant and important to the story.
Agreed.
Uh, God, I mean, the people's reaction to her coming back, yeah. High school is unfortunately that gossipy where they will talk about the survivor of an accident as if they somehow perpetrated it. It's that weird spotlight that can occur in American schools. Intentional or not, it's what happens. The story in issue 3, though, about how her grandparents won't talk to her because she dragged her grandfather out of a burning building, like it was not easy, but at least something that was well within what most normal girls can do.
Mm-hmm.
I almost feel like there's another story to be had right there. Her grandparents are still alive, they just refuse to come to the house.
Oh, they thinking witch,
that was
witch,
sad.
witch. Yeah, it's sad.
A little later on in that issue, though, Kara is still adjusting to life without her friends in these new circumstances. And her friend Dolly accidentally broke open her Fitbit tracker, and then she showed that the battery had the symbol of this weird company called LexCorp on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, not everyone would know that, but if you've read DC long enough, that's the moment where you look at that and say, okay, the plot thickens.
Dun 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 dun.
But she keeps hearing the words "save me" at some point. I'm guessing that's supposed to be her hearing picking up on faraway voices.
Yeah.
Or some sort of link. They didn't really make it clear because they made it first seem like she was being haunted by Jen's last words. But then there was some sort of weird link to the person in the laboratory.
It could have been accidental because her track coach was the one responsible for the experiments that created the earthquakes and everything, the Fitbit tracker she's wearing. It could be that the weird energy experiments they were doing accidentally created a link between Kara and this other Kryptonian, Tanon.
Right.
There's a lot of unknowns, unfortunately, when it comes to this particular story. And Tanon is not a character I'm familiar with in DC. This mini was the first time I'd ever heard of him.
Yeah.
Maybe one shot, because I had never heard of him either.
Yeah, I've actually done some research on it, and through the many databases I've actually come across, this is his first appearance.
Huh.
Really?
He is a unique. He is a unique character to this.
See, that makes me wonder if Mariko Tamaki had a larger plan for Supergirl that just never came to fruition. It may have been dependent on sales of this mini as to whether or not she had her own, like, White Knight style universe she could have continued. But yeah, now she knows that her coach is the one perpetrating a lot of the hell that she's gone through in the last few weeks, and when she gets angry and the heat vision started, the way she responded told me she'd never done that one before.
I wasn't a particular fan of that panel, though.
Oh, I wasn't a fan of when she used the ice breath later, but that's more of a personal thing. But yeah, she and Kara and Tanon form a quick I don't want to say friendship, but at least kinship.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because Kara starts to understand that she is an alien. She's an alien on Earth. And her home has a name, even though she finds out not long afterwards that her home no longer exists. But as she's gathering things to run away from home and help Tenon, is when we find out that Tenon, as a result of his torture, is a psychotic dude.
Really psychotic.
He's a bit bitter.
Oh, it's not a bit. And he used his heat vision on some poor photographer that just happened across him, and simply because of this man's existence, he used enough heat vision to break him down significantly, but not exactly vaporize him. And
Yeah,
then he
dust and ashes.
no, there was meat
there's
left
still-
on those bones.
Yeah.
And then he crushed the man's camera under his foot, even though the guy posed zero threat to him whatsoever. I understand that he was tortured for a significant amount of time, but yeah, he definitely broke into the psychotic area of a psyche.
Yep.
And then, let's see, Kara decides to meet him on an abandoned farm where she finds out that he was an ambassador to Earth from Krypton, who wasn't aware that Krypton was destroyed not long after he arrived. But when he touched down Earth, he was almost immediately met by paramilitary troopers. And then he was subjected to experiments, and the coach was trying to harvest the energy in his system for a renewable energy source.
Oh boy.
It's almost like the trope some people like to point out about green jobs killing everybody in comic books.
Yeah.
It's more like just people monkeying around with things they don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
In the fourth issue, though, it occurred to me that Dolly is a dense character, her friend with the purple hair, the lesbian.
Yeah.
Because that other girl with the puce hair hit on her like 3 times and she kept ignoring her.
And she's like, yeah, the museum, okay, cool. Yeah, we're going.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the first time almost felt like clubbing her. It's like Chicks India. But, yeah, it turns out that the coach kidnapped Dolly to drag Kara and Tenon out of hiding so that she could capture them again. And the troopers watching over the coach have kryptonite rounds.
Which I have some questions about, but,
A couple, but there were a couple things that weren't very well defined. They were aware that this substance hurt people like Kara, but they weren't aware of what it was necessarily.
Yeah.
Right. Well, no, because Tannen knew. He told her what it was.
Yeah,
It was in the
did he?
collar that restrained her.
yeah, well, that was the coach who said, "Kryptonite, from your planet, we believe." They thought it was a substance from her planet. They didn't know that that was her planet.
Gotcha.
Because,
Well, I still always had a problem with how did so much kryptonite come to Earth that it was always a factor in evil schemes.
I think later they were able to synthetically replicate it.
well, I don't
maybe.
necessarily know, because technically, from the amount that we've seen, all it would take is one decent-sized meteorite to produce the amounts that we're seeing in this miniseries.
Yeah, because it doesn't take much just to neutralize the powers.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but I mean, it's been hurled into space. It's been crushed. It's been, buried away. How much of it is on Earth? There always seems to be a convenient amount for the nemesis
Well,
of the day.
yeah, but, I mean, you're talking about the DC Universe proper. In this particular miniseries, there isn't really an explanation.
Right. They just have enough to produce rounds.
Rounds and some restraints.
Yeah.
The most we saw were the handcuffs that Tenon had in the end of the second issue.
Yeah.
Other than that, it was mostly about the size of a bullet or a pill. With the exception of Lex Luthor's little signet ring at the end.
Yeah, I saw that. I caught that on. Interesting addition.
Yeah. But when Tenon went super psycho and decided to try to kill Dolly just so he could convince Kara of what the right thing to do was.
Yeah.
I noticed a few things changed there. Kara had to grow up real fast. Dolly started to use actual swear words.
Mm-hmm.
And, this scene where he dropped her and Kara had to save her was, like, one of my few complaints about the miniseries. When Kara grabbed Dolly's legs mid-fall, I'm surprised Dolly still has vertebrae that work. That body was an awkward bend.
Yeah. It's like she was trying to sit up and she held her
I don't quite know
Or
how
was
to.
she bent? No, she was bent backwards. Like
Yes.
it was weird.
Her
It was a weird.
legs basically went, or her waist went 90 degrees at somewhere just below the rib cage, with her legs still bending backwards. This full bend is somewhere close to about, well, it's not 90. It's closer to about 110, 120 degrees.
Definitely a
Yeah.
yoga pose.
Dawson would be proud. And, of course, not long after that is the big fight you would expect between Tenon and Kara. And it's a little bit astonishing to see the amount of power that came across in these few panels. When Tenon hit Kara into a building and it started to crumble behind her.
Hmm.
A skyscraper coming down. And I do like that all of Kara's inspirations for fighting is her own. It's nothing that she got from Superman. It's not necessarily something that's ingrained from her parents. It's her sense of right and wrong.
Yeah, good old fashioned elbow to the nose. I can appreciate that.
Yeah. And Tanon decided to try to destroy everything by hitting the coach's mysterious energy generator, which was supposed to create enough energy and fire to decimate her hometown. And she managed to knock it down with her ice breath. And that's a power I've always had an issue with, because I understand why a Kryptonian should be able to exhale air with more force, but why they should be able to exhale such an extreme volume of air always confuses me.
Yeah, that I've had issues with that point too. Also, you'd have to compress it really, really,
Yeah.
really well for it to be cold and actually condense, and lungs of alien or human couldn't do that.
Yeah, whoever wrote that original power for Superman obviously didn't understand that maybe a Kryptonian's internal diaphragm would be much stronger. Yeah, you could take air in and out much more forcefully, but that doesn't mean that necessarily they'd be able to compress gases in their lungs, nor would they have a pocket dimension necessary to carry the amount of air you think it would.
Right,
Yes,
because you
and we're
can't.
also.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we're also talking. We also like comics involving people being dealt with radiation.
Mhm.
So back then they didn't know squat about science. So
Yeah.
That's true. But also, you can't breathe in less air than you breathe out. You know what I mean? Because she was telling herself, okay, take a deep breath. And I think it was that she was trying to figure out the situation. And when she exhaled, there was a whole lot of air that couldn't possibly have all fit into the lungs or into her entire body, because she's kind of a frail little thing. So, yeah, that's been an issue. It's a plot device.
Yeah. You know what, though? Mariko Tamaki put together a really nice epilogue here, because after Tanon disappeared, more LexCorp people showed up at the Danvers family farm to find Kara, to which her parents won't tell them anything, and her dad even gave Kara some traveling money so she could go do what she needed to do and just get away from it all.
I can just imagine her father telling them all to screw off.
Probably, but what I mean, though, is instead of one of those usual comic book style endings, the perfect family ending, or this is when Superman shows up to find out about another superpowered individual, instead of any of that, Kara Danvers is written so she takes off on her own. This is her self-discovery now.
Right,
Yeah.
and I like that.
I love the ending, how they ended this. It's like
Yeah.
we need a.
Well, I mean, her decision was to go to Metropolis to meet Superman, since the two of them seem to have a similar power set.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was her decision. She was not, she wasn't forced into anything by any other character. Superman was going to intercept something. She ties her Kryptonian blanket around her neck. She has no costume at this point. Meets him mid-air, wearing blue jeans and sneakers, and says, hey, can I talk to you for a second?
That was a great intro.
I love, great intro to the characters. But I love this is how the story ends, because we know where things are going to go from here. Generally,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
That's been told.
Yeah, and I'm sad Tamaki won't have the opportunity to do this, because right now she's writing X-23, which, in my opinion, is another great series with another great female character, but obviously she's too busy to work on another version or another volume of this story.
Right.
It's sad.
But at the same time, I guess we've gone through it. Jesse, you want to go through first with a summation?
Oh, sure. I love these kind of grounded stories when it comes to characters with just characters, and so in general, I love these stories, and I also like to write dramatic things, which is I think might be a personal problem for me, but
Hmm.
but again, it's very grounded story, very has a lot of heart to it.
Okay.
I would toss an 8 at this one.
Oh wow. Okay.
Hmm.
That's high for you. Joanna, what do you think?
Well, I liked that it wasn't what I expected because of my previous experience with Superman and Supergirl. I was actually kind of dreading reading it, to be honest, because I thought it would be more of the same, and I'm not a fan of the supers, any of them really, because of the tropes, because of the walking plot device, you know. So I was pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed that she was a real person. She had depth. She had struggles, you know, that didn't center around some nemesis or her powers or something. You
Hmm.
know, she was dealing with life as an individual, as a person. Um, the drama was good. I mean, I expected this kind of happy-go-lucky story because that's kind of what you get in Clark's early years. So it broke the mold in a great way, and I was actually pleasantly surprised. I liked the artwork. There were some great one-liners. I screenshot a few of them just to keep just like, am I a bug? is one of them. Um, I would actually give it a 9.
Okay. You know what? I've Supergirl has been one of the characters I've tried to follow in DC through her various iterations. I read the originals. I read some of the Matrix era. I even read some of the Linda. I think it was Linda Danvers version when the Matrix was attached to a schoolgirl and became a different version of Supergirl, like not technically directly related to Superman. And I read the Michael Turner version when the character was suddenly reintroduced as a teenager directly from Krypton. And surprisingly, after everything is said and done, I think this is my favorite version of the character because Tamaki tried to tell a tale about a real girl who has extraordinary circumstances instead of the other way around.
Right.
This is a character who, even though she has echoes of Superman, is definitely set apart from him for the first time really ever in the character's history. And the fact that this is an Elseworlds tale kind of makes me sad.
Right.
She had a lot of actual friendships. She had a lot of actual relationships, including to her adopted family, which is something that also often ends up glossed over when it comes to DC's telling of the character. And it's really unfortunate because in flipping through the end of this graphic novel, there were several designs as to what this version of Supergirl's costume could look like. I could only imagine what her relationship to Clark Kent would be at this point because she still doesn't know all of it. And, I think part of her exposition at the end, when she's sitting in a diner in Metropolis trying to understand whether she's taking the right path, really says it well because it says it's a dumb question because there's no one beginning. It's like, the beginning of what? Like, yeah, there's you being born, but not necessarily the beginning of you. That's just you being born. This, for 4 issues, this had a lot of very internalized struggles and interesting philosophical questions. I think the only reason why this didn't break wide when it was out is because the art is a little rough compared to a lot of other things out there. I'm not going to sit here and say it's bad. Joelle Jones, like I said, she started out kind of rough in the first one, but she settled in by the second and third issue, and you really started to get a feeling as to what she was going for. I just think that some people read that first issue and decided that this isn't a superhero tale, it doesn't look like DC stuff, and therefore they skipped out on something they really should have read. And
They're lost.
yeah, and I would give this a strong 9. This is the type of book that deals a lot with internal things. I could see myself buying this and giving it to my 14-year-old daughter. She'd probably find it intriguing.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
All right, so next week we already have something on tap. We have the first volume of Scott Pilgrim, a color version.
Ooh, colors.
Yeah, I read the original not long after the movie came out, obviously, about 15 years ago. Jesus.
Oh wow!
Is it already been that long? No way.
It feels like it. It may not be actually that long, but it does feel like it's been a while since the movie was out. Had to have been over a decade because my first child was still small back then.
Wow.
So I'm curious to see how well this holds up because goodness knows Slacker Tales didn't last much longer than the first part of the millennium there.
Okay, that was 8 years ago.
8 years ago, okay. Yeah, she was still small. Just not as small as I was picturing. I was probably thinking about my middle child. All right. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next week. It'll be Scott Pilgrim Color Volume 1. Thank you very much. Have a great one. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
And Jesse.
Take care, everybody. Enjoy your holidays.